That, my friends, is art. In motion, Engineer Jeff, man, keeping it hot.
Love it.
Inside of Truth Radio Nation. Oof. You can't even Segui any better than that, because, gang, it's actually exactly where we're going with this right now.
Segui?
Hanging out. Segue. Just having fun, man. Hanging out with my man Kevin Cadora, Fair Cadora APC, faircadora.com. I'm sure you got a 619-255-8500. They could probably get at you as well. And speaking of getting at you, gang, Kevin, if you missed the first two segments, we got at you with some old school Joan Benet, Ramsey. We got some Stephen Avery, Making the Murderer. Now let's go to the TV land. And the reason why I want to hit on this is because I've heard you say this before, and I want to get you on the air, on the record. I want to get you on the record saying this. Is that there's a lot of shows that portray that they're doing the whole, let's just say justice thing and serving it well. But there's one that stands out from the rest.
Law and Order. And I think there's a reason why Law and Order has been on for as long as it has been, and that reason being is that it's the most accurate out of all of the shows, and it's like surprisingly accurate.
Even to the point where they use real stories, right?
They pull real stories from the headlines. They use real law. I mean, they actually use like the actual law. And they cite the law when they're in judges' chambers. For whoever has seen Law and Order, they will cite actual cases that are actual real cases. Miranda being one, that's just one of many that they use. So, I mean, Law and Order is really, as an attorney, it's actually very interesting to watch, because you look at this, and I'm a family law attorney. I don't do criminal law, but you remember criminal procedure and criminal law from law school, and they make reference to these things in Law and Order, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that, and that's true. And the fruit of the poisonous tree, that's an actual term of art and law that they use on that show, and you learn that in law school. Totality of the circumstances and Miranda and things of that nature, and it's actually it's fun to watch, because it's like, yeah, that's actually how it is. And then you have the other shows.
Well, so no, this is what I want to do. I put a little thought in this. So we're almost going to kind of make this like a little game show, okay? So cue the jovial music, in the background. Let's go down in a non-linear fashion, so not in order of importance or popularity or anything, just ones that came up for mine. So Judge Judy, real or BS?
Judge Judy is BS. Judge Judy is a real judge, or she was a real judge. I think she is still. She still has an active license, but what she does is basically arbitration, or basically binding arbitration. Basically, the parties come in, they have a dispute, and then she makes a ruling. But I volunteer as a temporary judge in small claims court. I've actually sat up on the bench and had the black robe as a temporary judge, and I've seen how small claims actions actually unfold. They don't unfold like Judge Judy. I'm not up there, screaming and yelling and berating people and saying you're wrong,
giving people moral lessons.
No, that's not, as judges. Actually, we're taught not to do that. I mean, we listen to the facts and then we make a ruling. That's basically, and if we have questions, we'll ask questions. But we don't tell people that they're wrong. We don't do that, and we're not supposed to. So I think, and Judge Judy being, as popular as she is and as wealthy as she is, I think, she's up there in terms of how much revenue she makes, and she's been on for a very long time, and I commend her for that. But in terms of, is that how it works in the real world? No, it's not like that.
And another thing, too, is that the stuff that they allow as evidence it would never be admissible. It's all like that. There's a very specific format you have to follow with evidence that you can actually state your case with. And the stuff they always come up with is ridiculous on that show.
Yeah, I mean, the small claims is really lackadaisical, and especially in San Diego with the evidence that can come in. But yeah, I mean, you can't let everything under the sun in. I mean, it's there to entertain. Judge Judy is, and that's it.
And a slight level of inform. Okay, fair enough. Let's move on. What about divorce court?
Divorce court, again, BS. I mean, that's not how divorce court is. Divorce court is sad. Divorce court is messy. Divorce court involves children. Divorce court involves domestic violence and abuse. These people, they've been married for a few months, maybe a year, and they're disputing over a couple of $100s or a couple of $1,000. that we don't, as family law attorneys, we don't even handle that. They have a special division at the courthouse that handles those types of cases. And those types of disputes, that's not divorce court. Divorce court is very serious and it's very sad. And it's, there's no winner. In divorce court on TV, you have winners. There are no winners in family law court.
Yeah, that's well said, man. That's well said. Okay, what about, have you ever heard of the show Suits?
I have. I've watched it a few times.
So real or BS?
Complete BS. I mean, that's it's entertaining, but I mean, that's not how the world of law works. I mean, backdoor deals, shady dealings, things. I mean, that sort of stuff will get you disbarred. Not telling the judge certain things, that'll get you disbarred. I mean, they do make reference to that. I've seen the show a few times. They do make reference to being disbarred. But I mean, there are some lines that me as an attorney would never cross, and they cross it often in that show. Okay,
well then, so what about Boston Legal? Got a lot of contemporary, critical acclaim. So, but real or BS?
That. Out of the three that we just mentioned, that's real. Okay. You're getting closer to Law and Order than Suits. Definitely a lot closer than Suits. I watched it a few times. It's been off the air some time now, but again, it's pretty accurate and how it works. I mean, there's some things where you're like, no, that would never happen. Talking to the judge outside of chambers off the record would never happen, and I think that happened a few times in that show.
Fair enough. And what about an old perennial L.A. Law?
L.A. Law, I think that it's really in line with Boston Legal, so pretty accurate. But again, these things might happen. I'm speaking from my 13 years experience.
Sure.
I would never do this, and I've never seen this happen. I mean, in California, or at least in San Diego, judges don't have that type of camaraderie with the attorneys. I mean, you could be taken off the bench for that. I mean, you're being biased. So, but yeah, a lot of the procedures they did and the negotiations that I saw in LA Law, I mean, that was it was pretty accurate.
What about the dry delivery and the deadpan of the once famous Ally McBeal?
Complete BS. I mean, again, I think some of the things
that was more a rom-com. I think just to happen to take place in a courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Legally Blonde with what's her name? And it was entertaining. And again, all these were very entertaining. I really liked these shows when I watched them. But again, in terms of, is that how it works in the real world? No. I mean, law is, you sit down, you try to negotiate, and you come to a deal. If not, you go to trial. There's not these backdoor deals done behind closed doors with judges and, third parties and things of that nature. I mean, it's not lascivious like that. It's pretty cut and dry. And yeah, so that's why I like Law and Order, because that's really how it works. The only qualm I have with Law and Order is that they sometimes talk to the judge outside of the courtroom without the other side being there. That would never happen here. So other than that, it's pretty accurate.
Fair enough, man. Now I'm gonna take a little detour on this. Do you watch a lot of TV or shows right now?
I do.
Okay. What are some of your favorites? Maybe keeping in this domain, just so we don't get too far off base here.
Well, Dateline.
Okay.
It's one of my wife and I have very different tastes in shows, but she loves those true crime stories. Dateline, 60 Minutes, the real crime dramas. I really that's what I can watch with my wife. I have my own personal genre that I watch on my own, but sticking with this topic, those are the ones that I watch.
Yeah, I got into 60 Minutes actually recently.
Yeah,
more later in life. The thing there, I love. I'm starving for real good journalism. I feel like that's the thing in our society right now that is under the most fire and heat, especially with all the clickbaits and now the gazillion news sources and the internet stuff that gets shared with no efficacy standard whatsoever. Like, just that pure journalism game, it's in the crosshairs, man.
I agree. I mean, journalism without agenda. I mean, I don't think, especially the millennials, even know what that means. I mean, there was a time before, CNN and this 24-hour news network that journalism was exactly that. And fortunately, that's not the world we live in now. So,
you ever watch Vice?
No.
Vice is a good one. Producer Adrian's nodding his head.
Okay.
You could get that on Netflix. I know that I watch it on HBO.
Well, they have like HBO only has
Yeah.
certain news ones, but if you go
And there's HBO Go,
Yeah.
which is the thing you can get.
And their YouTube channel,
They got website. Adrian apparently a big fan, saying you could catch all that stuff online and whatnot. And they actually switched now. They have Vice News, which is a little bit more poppy. It's not the longer segments. You know, what's your favorite? Is Law and Order like your favorite show of all time in this domain?
If I was to choose, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again, it's the longest running legal show there is. I mean, they have CSI, they have Criminal Intent, they have the original Law and Order,
right?
And they are very, very powerful shows that are very, very accurate. I mean, I could watch the Law and Order marathon every weekend.
Yeah.
So
my favorite of all time was Columbo.
Oh, that's the old school.
Yeah, that was my favorite of all time. Just loved the approach.
Yeah.
You might say almost the Socratic method about wearing somebody down and just being one move in front of them at all times on the chessboard.
It's funny that you mentioned that because the Socratic method is actually how they teach law school. So, I mean, that beaten down until you can't go on. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how it is.
Because even the most, I don't really know what that word would be, but like, the criminal who's got his games airtight, the most airtight criminal with the most airtight, crime that he committed or she committed, eventually they're going to find it.
Yeah.
Like if you just stay with it and you wear it down, eventually they're going to trip on their own shoelace. And that was the genius of that.
Good show.
Yeah, great show. Speaking of great show, gang, we're not actually done yet with our man, Mr. Cadora. Man, I don't know what else possibly we could cover. We went Joan Benet, we went Stephen Avery, even did our own hot list of best TV shows, why and why not to watch. So, gang, when we come back, final wrap up, we're going to go anecdotes and advice and a little real life experiences about what it's like to be Kevin Cadora in the law right after this.